Welcome to the Watercolour Westport Stories podcast. Today we are sitting in a new model home, and you might notice our furnishings are different and our surroundings are different. We have a lot of unique home offerings in watercolour, and this is a Frontenac walkout bungalow town that we're enjoying the lower level space of with our wonderful guest, Dave, who is a resident to Watercolour who moved here in August of 2024. He and his wife. He is a recently retired member of our forces who has been serving our country for over 29 years. And we are really looking forward to having a conversation with him because he brings a unique perspective.
Very unique.
Yes, and I know that each one of our guests has been unique and special in their own way, and it's been a real pleasure to hear all their stories. But I know, Stephen, you are interested in pursuing a conversation today that will relate to some of the inspiration for watercolour. And this is Stephen Rolston, founder and visionary of Watercolour Westport. So I would love to hear just a little bit about that before we dive into a chat with Dave.
Sure. As we've mentioned before, the community that sort of started this whole movement of traditional neighborhood design communities that are walkable and focused on pedestrian movement as opposed to car movement are all founded really by this incredible community that I have not even been to in Florida, and it's called Seaside. And it was established 40 years ago, and Dave has been to Seaside.
There you go. So
yeah,
a special connection there.
very special.
That's really neat. Well, maybe we'll have to take the podcast on the road someday.
Oh yes.
Beautiful location.
Welcome, Dave. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks to you guys.
Yeah, it's really a pleasure to have you here. I know part of the vision of this podcast is also to build community so that people get to know each other within watercolour as well as the stories that unfold. So maybe you just take a minute and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be here. And
Yeah, perfect. So you sort of highlighted the sort of the most recent, I guess, part of my past. I was a member of the Air Force for 29 years. Recently, so. The same day, the weekend before I moved here to Watercolour, I retired after 29 years in the Air Force, and then had to get that over and done with because the moving vans were leaving the same day actually, and we came here to Seaside. My wife Lindsay and I. So both Lindsay and I originally from British Columbia.
I love that.
So do I. Edit.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So both Lindsay and I originally from British Columbia, but that's not, I guess, how we met. But we have had the chance. I guess there's a part of it a chance, but sometimes it can get tiresome as well. But we've done a lot of moving around. Sure. Being a military family, so that has been great and frustrating at times as well. But it has been great to be able to see both the country to a certain extent, as well as living in the United States for a period of time. We have two young adult sons that are currently off at university, and carving out their own future. And so it was that was sort of a great unique time for us to also realize, like the big house that was just fine for the four of us was going to be way too much work for two of us. We stumbled across, I believe we stumbled across it. My wife, I think, was a bit more involved in the finding of maybe Westport as well as Watercolour. And so my time in the Air Force was sort of kept me very busy. So I'm happy to not be as busy. Sure. And be enjoying all the activities and sometimes just the nature that a region like the Rideau Lakes provides.
Yeah. How many cities did you live in your?
It's got to be 5 to 7. So I started in Kingston for school. My first posting was in North Bay, Ontario. As part of, I was actually on shift during the 9/11 tragedy, and that sort of changed my career. It was the start of my career, but it led to a lot of things. As a result, we were down in Florida. That's how we lived just down the road from Seaside for 4 years. Other than that, so I spent time off and on in Ottawa, in Comox, British Columbia on the island. I'm forgetting Toronto. I served for a small period of time. And those are the sort of major, I think I'm forgetting something, but those are the major spots. Of course, I've also done, shorter distance times in a number of different spots.
Yeah. I think what intrigues me about that is the unique perspective you would have of uprooting and then putting down roots. When we talk about watercolor and communities like Seaside, where people are starting the new opportunities, those new things that can bring meaning and purpose and opportunity to your life that may not have otherwise existed. And I wonder how you feel about now 6 months or 8 months, I guess, into your journey of living in watercolor. What does it feel like?
Oh yeah, that's a loaded question. Loaded because there's a number. So I will admit, it has been a lot for me I have to remind myself that, I'm actually planning on staying here, because normally I would stay 3 to 4 years in a location.
Okay.
And now I'm reminding myself, no, I'm going to be here for a while.
Yeah.
And so that's allowed me to, do a lot of things differently, think about a lot of things. And I also was thinking, as you were asking that question, in a different way, that conversation happens so frequently in the neighborhood. So when we're chatting with, it's really interesting to me. Few people in the neighborhood here in Watercolour are from the region. There are some,
right?
But we all come from such a variety of places. But it's funny that there's a commonality in exactly sort of where your question comes from, is that we've uprooted, I guess you could say, or we've moved here, and then sort of all those experiences that people have had. They're from different locations, but they're very frequently similar, that people have sort of similar conversations about, the moving process, sort of a less interesting one, but also sort of what it's like, and dealing with the, visiting family or old friends that are somewhere else.
Right.
So it's a common, I would say that I really enjoy sort of hearing those stories as you sort of chat with your neighbors.
Yeah.
I suppose I moved frequently to different, over larger period, over larger distances. So it was pretty common for us to be driving across the country as a family, which, when you have toddlers, is maybe not the funnest activity to do. So perhaps my distances were longer, but there are plenty of folks around here that also, also did a lot of did a lot of moving, and have seen a lot of areas, perhaps just not the distances being quite so long. And there was a part of me when I first came here wondered, is this going to be a bunch of folks that come from the greater Toronto area?
Sure.
And that's definitely not the case. Well, there's a little bit of that, but definitely not. It's just such an interesting mix of backgrounds.
Yeah. Did you find the transition to living in Westport and in watercolor have any kind of unique challenges or benefits that you think other people would benefit from hearing from you?
Oh yeah, so it's a village. So
Yes.
So there's, I think people perhaps wonder. I know it was something that we thought of was, okay, well, what conveniences or services, how far am I going to need to drive to go to certain things? And I realized a few weeks or months ago that I really stopped thinking about that a long time ago. Largely speaking, so are there certain things that I do need to drive to have? So we don't have a dentist in town. Okay, so I need to go to Perth, and that's a 25-30 minute drive. But pretty much all of the stuff that is available in Westport is quite, I should say, surprising, because if I need milk, it's a 5-minute walk to the grocery store.
Yeah.
And it's very convenient. Surprisingly, and there's more. You hear of new businesses giving a start, or current businesses that are changing their hours slightly to accommodate the fact that there's a different number of full-time or full year-round residents, which is great.
Yes.
I do. I benefit a bit because my wife does. She has a bit of a commute to work,
Okay.
but she works in Carleton Place. But
Yes.
she thankfully does some grocery shopping or whatnot. And
Right,
some of that stuff
errands.
that works out. It works out really, really well. But it's just such a. Actually, I was thinking about that. As you asked me to come in today, I thought, well, I should probably think about these things. Yeah. I rarely need to do a trip, and it's actually kind of nice that when Lindsay and I want to do something on the weekend, that might include we're going to go explore Kingston for the day. Having both of us have lived in Kingston, so it's kind of nice to go visit again.
Right.
Hey, and we're also going to stop by the Costco or whatever it happens to be at the same time.
Right, for those sort of amenities that you might think you don't have in a small village. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's I guess as I ramble on, it's just something that I stopped thinking about. Like
Sure.
it's not.
Yeah.
It is something you think about when you want to relocate somewhere. Absolutely, if you're anything like our family, we have the map out and we're trying to figure out where the hospitals are and the schools and all that kind of great stuff. And then you realize after you've moved here that you don't really need to think about that hard. The other nice thing is that there's a lot of, whether it be the in-person conversations that you have, or as well as there's a very vibrant social media recommendation engine that exists in Westport. So finding the right contractor to help you out with a vision that you have for your backyard, or other types of businesses. It's really easy to get a good recommendation from someone, and you find out there's a business that is willing to do that you probably didn't know existed, that is just around the corner.
That's really exciting. Yeah, that local knowledge is starting to be your own knowledge now about the community.
Well,
and
absolutely.
about the area.
It didn't take long to find myself, providing a helpful, nudge to someone to say, actually, you should, you give these guys a call. They served us really well.
Yeah, that's really great. If you were to look back at making the decision to move, aside from proximity to amenities and that aspect of it, what about the natural environment that surrounds you? Do you have an interest in outdoor activities that
Yes.
are part of the community? I know Seaside, of course, has that as an integral part of the community, is exploring nature.
So I would say that's I would say to someone that's the number one draw. It was certainly the number one draw for Lindsay and I. Was Watercolour was the location and the nature, and all of the amenities side of it is that sort of bonus, right? That there are plenty of people that are willing to live, away from civilization and commute in for those things. Here we don't need to, right? So whether it be fully mountain, whether it be you can commonly find Lindsay and I out on Goat Island at the harbor, just sitting and enjoying a coffee, and I'm watching the birds. I've become a bit of I've started to sort of get into bird watching a bit because there's just so many opportunities and so many great locations.
Yes.
There's a lot of great, we're a stone's throw from so many other great parks and hiking, walking opportunities. I haven't dusted off the bike yet, I will admit that, but that's also in my plans to do that.
Yeah.
People that want to be out on the water, no problem there. I'm dabbling in kayaking a bit, and so to see if that's something that I want to do a bit more of. But just the opportunities to we're a minute. We don't even really think about driving anywhere these days. Like if it's within town, it's a short walk. Pick a lake. It's a short walk to either of them. So
Isn't that fantastic?
yeah, it's great. And just being able to just sort of walk out your front door and it's right there. We've done a great, even closer at home, we've done a great job with the start of the trails on the property, on the neighborhood. It's great. The birdhouses are a sort of a favorite of mine.
Nice.
That are out there.
Nice to hear.
And it's great. And it it's within a minute or 2 minutes, you're on a trail walking and enjoying the birds and whatever else happens to be scurrying around. The squirrels are a lot of entertainment as well.
Well, that's really neat to hear. Some of the parallels that you see in Seaside to Watercolour, I think you guys would love to explore that conversation. Stephen, do you want to take a direction with that, or?
Sure, I would love to, because what I find incredible, having downloaded so many articles over the winter time, I just felt this prompting, go to the origin, go to the founding of this movement, because it's so different than typical suburban sprawl. And I fell in love with it in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and I didn't even have words for it. I couldn't articulate anything. All I saw was beauty, beauty, beauty. And to me, beauty always wins, and there's goodness and truth right behind wherever there's beauty. But it's just hard to articulate something you don't even know exists. And so many people, they experience it and they tell me they feel calm or peace or relaxed when they're just in the village of Westport.
Yeah.
But particularly this land planning that I knew nothing about, it's incredible to read the history of the founder of the community Seaside, Robert Davis. And his original cottage was 30 by 38. And so that's about the same size as our original homes that were 30 by 40. And he just wanted to help people experience what he enjoyed as a child, going to the Florida coast. And he dreamed of a day someday when people could live, work, and play in Seaside. And about 40 years later, the Seaside Institute had this little video that I sent to Dave over last weekend when I had talked to him about being a guest on the podcast. And it's this idea of, with high-speed internet, any little town can go from Zoomtown to Boomtown. And that's what we think will happen here, as many young families will discover Westport. And then it could be a corporate town for people like Shopify, or many of the high-tech workers that lived in our homes that were remote workers or hybrid workers. So yeah, would you care to touch on that?
I got a number of things that I could speak to that. So it's worth noting that in my, from a occupational perspective, I worked in the IT business, in the communications and IT business for my years in the Air Force. Okay. So technology stuff excites me, both from an occupational perspective, or it's also something I'm just really interested in. I guess the first thing I'd say was, because of that background, I would say I just didn't bother looking at when it came to looking for homes, and this has been for years. I just don't consider places that don't have high speed, and I know that's a real first world kind of problem, but it was required for my work as well as play. I suppose these days as well, to sort of be honest. Pretty much every appliance that we have in our homes these days is connected to the internet, one way or another.
Right.
And so I will admit, when I first heard that Watercolour was, and I guess it's less Watercolour and it's more that WTC has the service, and Watercolour gets the benefit from that. That I was a bit surprised, considering the size of size of Westport. But happily, that allowed me to go to step 2, which is, the consideration of when I was thinking about relocating. But yeah, it's great. So, I do work part-time right now. I am a distance worker, and I couldn't do that without the sort of benefits that I have as a result of the services that I do have to the home, high-speed internet and whatnot. And there's a number, like I'm not the only person, I'm certainly not the only person in Westport, certainly not the only person in Watercolour that also, is doing that kind of work. I think we all got used to it during the pandemic. You know, and that changed. But I think it let people and some businesses know, and some of them have you know, pushed a little bit farther in this area, is to say, yeah, you know, there's no reason why we couldn't be distributed, and so let people, you know, live and work somewhere else. You know, I originally came here thinking, you know, the part-time work that I do, I would need to go into the office every once in a while for something.
Right.
Yeah, it's been pretty rare that I've needed to jump in a car, and actually it's been pretty rare that I've wanted to, right? So one of the reasons why, you know, for me, I was living and working in Ottawa before. The commute was not something that I enjoyed every day, and so when I retired, that was one of many things that I wanted to improve, was to get away from a commute. And my commute now is from the coffee machine to, you know, down into my lower living area where I have my office. Or truth be told, if I want to make my other coworkers a bit angry with me some days, I'll just take my laptop out onto my patio and I'll do some work from there. And so
be on your porch happily.
Yeah. Thankfully, I have a really good. Yeah, I get along. You know, my coworkers are great, and we have a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun, even if we're working at a distance. And I have a beautiful backdrop behind me in my video call.
That's awesome. That it is nice to be able to afford to have those. But like you say, it's a first world thing, but it is a real world thing for us, and you can't detach. You know, so it's staying connected is so important.
I should admit, so part of what I'm doing for my part-time work right now is a research for the organization that I'm doing some foresight work, but and a part of that is to look at, you know, I'm doing some work in terms of trends in Canada and future workforce and this kind of thing. It's actually quite amazing when you look at the trends that are like it is now. I can't remember I can't quote exactly what the government departments say about, you know, what is the sort of the necessity of internet access, but it's darn high. And in Canada, although, you know, we do have a lot of remote and rural areas of parts of Canada where it's difficult to get some of those services out, it's still amazing what percentage of Canadians do have access to high speed. And it's also, there's an interesting discussion to have there with what expectations that people have. So expectations are high. And again, I guess the takeaway is if you're moving out here or considering it, or you're already here, you don't have to. Your high expectations will be met. You know, I don't think there's anyone that's really complaining about. You know, the worst I've heard is, depending on your cell phone carrier, you might have a bit of a dead zone for a few minutes as you drive into Westport. I suspect, and I actually know that they're doing work to you know, add some more towers for some of those particular, but that's it. Like, that's the worst I've heard from some people. You know, and every once in a while, you know, I've had a call drop out when I'm talking to somebody, you know, driving through that part. But, you know, otherwise it's you know, it's no different than anywhere else that I've lived. That's actually better than some places that I've lived, to be completely honest.
Yeah. What about when you moved into your home? I'd love to hear more about your living experience. Did you find it an adjustment to move to a net zero home? What was that like? From I'm sitting down on my couch for the first time in my new house. What does it feel like? Oh, so
actually my experience goes before that.
Okay.
And I think you know where I'm going with this. So I did my undergraduate as a civil engineer. So the building process, the smart building process, and all of that sort of aspects. Well, actually, I'll even go before that. Some of my early memories of construction. My grandfather was a carpenter, and when I used to spend time with him, we used to go visit construction sites and watch homes being built. You know, and he would have all types of good feedback on how well or how poorly they were being built. So I think that sort of has always helped me with an interest in construction and how communities are are designed and how they function. So when we came across Watercolour, and my wife knew that I was going to be really interested in the net zero, and just the quality of the build. I'll just leave it from that perspective. Really captured my attention. So even before I was to move in, because so much of these homes, so much of the sort of exciting part for someone who comes from who's excited about those kinds of aspects, you don't get to actually see in the home. So are the homes beautiful, and do you get to see a beautiful home? Absolutely. But what you don't, get to see is stuff that's built into the home that is plastered over, or the floor is. So for example, right now we're in. I know I shouldn't use the word basement, but someone else would call it a basement.
Yeah.
We don't call it that because it's a living, it does not feel like it's not musty and cold and wet. It is just another part of your home that you can live in. And that's because of a bunch of things, a bunch of construction that was done that you can't see, and it was just smart. So that was really important to me. And then as we sort of were talking about a little bit before we pressed record was, we're in the process right now of turning our home from a net zero ready home to a net zero home. So the solar panels have been installed on the house.
Okay.
I have the batteries installed. Everything is there. We're waiting for the last few little electrical work to be done, and the inspection. And within the month, within a few weeks, we should have that part of the system running. And makes me really happy. We recently had it was that time where we wanted to change out our vehicles. Truth be told, one was a bit old, so it was time. And because of everything else we were doing, it was a great time for us to also to buy an EV. So
So was the tipping point to go to net zero? Was it I know it's multifaceted. It's the sustainability. It's the ongoing expenses, but it is an investment. So you must have done some research to discover that it was something you wanted to pursue.
Yeah.
Because they are a net zero ready house. You're already saving so much in terms of energy consumption, but taking it to that next level.
Yeah, you're right. It's multifaceted. So we had the opportunity. So I would say there's a big part of it that we have the opportunity to actually do things right, and much of this technology, the sort of building technology and the wherewithal to do what is being done here, it's not actually that new, right? The people have known about this for quite some time, but I think consumers didn't know. It's not something that's really been an option for folks,
Right.
and we were given. I felt that I was being given that option. So that's part of it. You combine that with a fantastic location, everything else we've already talked about.
Right.
It starts to become in my mind, it starts to become a no-brainer. Okay. That so there's a part of it that there's an altruistic part of it, absolutely.
Sure.
But it also sort of makes sense as well in my mind. There's a lot of what, for example, going the solar route, putting the solar panels on the battery, that doesn't make as much sense when you don't have a home that's built to best support that. Right. So the sort of the quality of the home, and what I mean that is the sort of the installation, the air, the management of airflow and whatnot. These homes are built. They're built to. They're going to be. I was pleasantly surprised with my heating bills coming from propane, for example. But pleasantly surprised because the homes are built to maximize that, and then it's sort of the next step to the power that rather than paying the electrical company, I'm gonna I still have the option to do that as much as I need to, but now I can now I can also benefit from, like today, a nice sunny day.
Yes.
And
Yep.
so,
Yep.
again, you're right, multifaceted. All these things sort of work together to make it a great opportunity. I had a conversation recently with some folks about the cost, the upfront. So is there an upfront cost to doing some of this? Yes. I don't know. I don't know about you, but if you look at what the prices of houses are,
Yes.
I'm actually not really paying that much more for a home here. And guess what? My home already includes all of that really smart building, whereas I'm going to buy an older house that was not originally built that way. And then if I'm interested in doing that, I'm going to have to retrofit that home. Some people would love to do that, but I suspect in the long run that's a lot more expensive endeavor, and there's a lot more heartache. Whereas I think I know it's true in our family that we moved here. There's sort of a turnkey look was certainly something that was a big advantage.
That's neat. I know we've often talked about the idea that there's a lot of angst about climate impact. There's a lot of angst about people trying to make a difference and then not feeling that they're even empowered to do that. And when you start with a home that is built and ready for you to take that next step, that is really a powerful thing. And then also to be somewhat energy independent, that you can produce the energy that your home needs and in the event of disruptions or other things, other events. So I'm excited for you to have your smartphone running your house. You'll be able to turn off things, turn them on, send in the
So
charge the car, do everything. You'll have a rechargeable lawnmower. You'll have a rechargeable everything.
Well, again, I said before, sort of technology things get my attention, and I get sort of excited for them. So I would be lying if I didn't say there's an aspect of all of this that allows me to geek out a little bit and see and experiment with things as well, to say, okay, well, if I if I schedule the home to operate in this manner, whether that be charge the solar aside, I can now decide, well, I only want to charge my batteries when the electricity is the cheapest, so I'm going to do that overnight. There's these kinds of things.
Right.
So there's I think I will probably have a lot of fun experimenting and doing all that stuff. I suspect that the novelty eventually will wear off, and I'll descend on whatever I find is the right sort of setup and options for our family. But you're right. There's a certain part of that appeals to me.
Oh yeah. Anything more about Seaside you want to talk about? I know you talked about some of the footprints of the homes that are available there, some of the vision you had, some of the ideas that you grasped from there that you feel have been a reality for Dave. Because it's one thing for us to talk about all of this before a shovel went in the ground, right? We sat around and tried to develop a story and get a vision, and you have been doing that for many years before anyone like Dave moved into a home. So,
well, I just see one could look at the similarities or the differences. Seaside was a town in the middle of nowhere, 5 hours from Orlando, 5 hours from Atlanta. And yet still, it's very much a recreational community and very few people live there. Whereas Westport is different in the sense that it's got a 200-year history, and we're just able to adapt elements from the Smart Growth Manual that the architect Andreas Duani wrote, this wonderful book that gives developers, everyday people like ourselves, founders of communities, a way and a roadmap and a blueprint to make it not be typical suburban sprawl. So are we a pure traditional neighborhood designed community in the middle of nowhere? Because they're often beach towns, because they're building them in the middle of nowhere. And no, but what we are is a summer cottage summer beach town with 36 lakes within a 15-mile radius. So there are a lot of similarities, but there are a lot of differences. And yet to be able to be with you and share with you some of the vision behind what will make, with all of these walking trails coming to life and hiking and biking and cross-country skiing trails, so unique and apropos and Canadian. That's what I think I've been doing our whole business career, is taking ideas from other places and how do we Canadianize that? How do we appropriate that into our context, given that Westport is this super natural place with such stunning natural beauty? How do we make more and more people able to access that natural beauty? So I just think it's a privilege to be with you, because I got to know Lindsay. Oh, and by the way, how did you get to meet Lindsay?
Oh, that's a very long story. So actually, the whole story is long, but the short version is, actually we were introduced. Although we're both from British Columbia, has nothing to do with how we met. We were introduced to each other through a mutual friend. So a friend that Lindsay had as a result of a trip that she went on in high school, ended up being a good friend of mine that I knew through the military. So I met him when I joined the military shortly afterwards at basic training, and lo and behold, it was just one of those things where your friend introduces you to another friend. So yeah, it was one of those important relationships that you make, early on in sort of in your early days, your college and university sort of days, is sort of where that came from. And it's just sort of a strange case, because Lindsay was at school in Montreal at the time at McGill. I was about to start school in Kingston at the Royal Military College, which is not that far apart considering we both lived from British Columbia. So sometimes when you look back at it in retrospect, you're kind of wondering how all the pieces actually fell into place. Yeah. But thankfully they all did.
The little beautiful tapestry. Yeah, that's really neat. How do your boys feel about coming here for the summer? You said they're done university. Are they going to live in Westport?
So they are, so this is like their home base right now, between semesters at university. So our boys having a say, having some agency in where we live, has always been a sort of an importance in our family, because we did, for a period of time, we did move somewhat frequently. And we didn't get to choose where, but we did get to choose the home to a certain extent. And so having the boys participate in that was to the best extent that we could, was always something that we tried to do, including coming to Westport. So they were very supportive. Nice. Because they looked at it as, so this is sort of a destination for them. So now it's now they're back here for sort of a period of time for summer vacation, or as they get out on their own, in the coming years, they'll be coming back again to sort of visit. But not only do they have to come visit the parents, they also get to come and enjoy everything that Westport and Rideau Lakes has to offer. I suspect one of my sons, both the sons are back on summer break right now for a period of time. I suspect when I go back to the house, one is already off, probably spending a lot of time enjoying the hiking up at the mountain and whatnot. So nice. They've been quite. It's
the dream.
They've been quite enjoying it thus far. Yeah.
That's really great to hear.
Well, Dave, maybe another question. Is there anything you think we could be doing as a company or as a community to welcome more military families and/or young high-tech people who could hybrid work, like your sons, who Montreal's 3 hours away, and we know of a number of families taking the Via train going to Kingston, 45 minutes away, and taking that, and then they're on high-speed internet on a medium-speed train, an electric train, or 2 hours they're at Union Station, or 2 hours they're in Montreal, or an hour they're in Ottawa. So any thoughts on recruiting?
So from a military aspect or ex-military aspect, I think you won't need to do anything. So it was just this past week, I was at a veterans breakfast that was hosted by the local Legion, and there are a good number, just because of the location of Westport is between a number of sort of hubs of military community in this part of Canada, that there are already veterans in the area, and I think it's just a matter of time that that people begin to move in, because they're currently, they already live in the general sort of region. From a tech perspective, I think I think it's a word of mouth thing, really, that people will need to know. I think they need to see other people succeeding, they don't, and move from there. There are some examples already in the neighborhood of folks with younger families and folks that are working from home, and a lot of great success stories as well. I think people kind of want to watch to see. I know people I talk to, my coworkers talk that, so every once in a while on the fringes of the meeting, they're like, so you live where? Right? And so yeah, it's a bit, so, and and again, in the tech community, it's long been a thing. I think that it was well before the pandemic that certain companies had figured out, well, wait a minute, I don't actually need to. I don't need to have everyone working in the same location. Shopify is a good example, as I think Uber is another. Anyways, a lot of sort of big tech companies that long ago figured out that there's no need to do this. What I find is a bit different. So my background from an IT perspective is with government. So the government is a bit more sticky with where you're located. That said, Kingston's a bit of a government town. Ottawa for certain. We're 45 minutes from Kingston. It's a pretty drive. It's not a bad one either. So I think it's a word of mouth thing, really, in the grand scheme of things. WTC is certainly doing a great job in terms of the services that I think they're. I was originally a bit worried. Come move into a small village. Yeah. What I heard great things, but it was, what is a small sort of communications company? And I long since realized they're not a small communications company. They're doing. They might be small in terms of footprint, but they're doing great work. So
that's really great to hear. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. You've shared a lot of really wonderful insights, and it's really, really been nice to get to know you better too. So thank you for spending your time with us.
Thanks for the invite. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to like, share, follow the Watercolour Stories podcast, bring a friend along. Like Dave just said, it's word of mouth, and tell someone that you're enjoying listening to the stories that are developing here in Westport at Watercolour. And we are going to be launching on many platforms, so keep an eye on our social media channels where you can learn more. And get in touch with us. Come for a visit. You just never know what you're going to discover when you come to Westport.